Thank you. I appreciate that. Good evening. I will call the special council meeting of Beaumont City Council for Tuesday, October 16, 2024 here in City Council Chambers at 6:48 in the evening. I'll begin with the land acknowledgement, as we always do. The city of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all First Peoples of this land, whether they be a First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich vibrant communities across the land. As we gather here in Treaty 6 territory in the homeland of the Métis Nation, we acknowledge that we are all treaty people and have ongoing responsibilities to protect and honor the treaty, the inherent rights of the people and the land. Next on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Madam Clerk, any changes to our agenda this evening? None? Thank you. Member of Council willing to move the agenda as presented? Councilor Cook.
I move that the April 16, 2024 special council agenda be adopted as presented.
Thank you, Councilor. Before I call for the vote, our discussion on the motion? See none. Councilor Barnhart, are you with us before I call for the vote to make sure you're
Yes. Yes, I'm here, Mayor.
Thank you very much. With that, Council, I'll ask you to vote on the agenda as presented. Councilor Barnhart, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. Council carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Oh, hang on. Yeah, I had some yeses there. That was really weird. Let's just try voting again, please. Councilor Barnhart, just officially.
Yes, I'm in favor, Mayor.
Thank you. That carries unanimously. Thank you, Council. Next on our agenda is our business items. 3.1 bylaw 1048-24 municipal development plan, Place Chalarousse amendment, first reading. Mr. Tarnowski, I believe you'll be presenting this evening with Mr. Johannes Wong as well. I got the microphone there for you. And Council, it is first reading, so we'll have the presentation and then we'll ask clarifying questions and we'll try to avoid debate if we can this evening, but sometimes clarifying questions leads to debate. So we'll try and keep it straightforward and we'll move along this evening. So please begin your presentation.
All right, good evening again, Mayor and members of Council. I'm Katrina Tarnowski, Long Range Planner, and I'm with my Manager of Long Range Planning, Johannes Wong. My presentation concerns two bylaws, 1048-24 and 1049-24. So Investec Consulting Limited, on behalf of Place Chalarousse GP Inc., has made 3 applications to facilitate the change of land use from commercial to medium density residential of a 1.38 hectare portion of condominium plan 2120339 Unit A. The address in Beaumont is 5603 Magazine Avenue. So there are 3 concurrent and cascading applications, these being to change the land use district of a parcel from commercial to integrated neighborhood district. That would lead to an amendment to the Place Chalarousse outline plan, and finally a need to amend the municipal development plan. As a result, administration is presenting 2 bylaws together for council's consideration and first reading this evening. Bylaw 1048-24 Municipal Development Plan Place Chalarousse Amendment and Bylaw 1049-24 Place Chalarousse Land Use Bylaw Amending Bylaw. The 3rd application to amend the Place Chalarousse outline plan will only be brought to council at a future date, as this is a non-statutory plan and can be approved by council by a simple resolution. If council gives first reading to bylaws 1048-24 and 1049-24 this evening, a public hearing will be held concurrently for all 3 amendments prior to the approval of these applications in May. The subject lands at 5603 Magazine Avenue are found in the Chalarousse Business Park and are located directly south of 30th Avenue. An aerial image and site photo of the redistricting location are included as attachment 2 and 3 to bylaw 1049-24 on pages 13 to 14 of the agenda package. The parcel is currently districted commercial, meaning it is intended to provide employment opportunities through various commercial and office uses with supporting residential where appropriate. The proposed district, the integrated neighborhood district, would instead be intended for residential development with a variety of housing options and integrated local commercial and business opportunities. So to allow for the proposed redistricting, the municipal development plan must also be amended. Currently, the subject site is designated as commercial in the MDP. The proposed land use designation is established residential, which is applied to existing residential neighborhoods within the community that already have an approved outline plan or area structure plan. In order to convert local employment areas to non-employment uses, the MDP sets out criteria that must be demonstrated by the applicant. These are that the lands are not required over the horizon of the MDP for employment purposes, that there is sufficient employment lands to accommodate projected employment over the horizon of the MDP. The conversion and proposed uses will not adversely impact the overall viability of the local employment area, and that there is existing or planned infrastructure to accommodate the proposed land use. The applicant provided a commercial needs review with their application, showing that there has been extremely limited interest in leasing the site in 4.5 years due to market saturation. A number of commercial uses are not permitted on the site due to a restrictive covenant that is registered on the parcel. And planned community lands in the Elan and Larev neighborhoods will have higher visibility and configurations that'll support larger format retail and will address the future employment need in Beaumont. They also submitted a utility servicing memo to demonstrate that the existing systems have sufficient capacity to accommodate the change in land use. Administration worked with the applicant to conduct public engagement for the 3 concurrent applications. They were circulated in December and January to affected landowners within a 100-meter radius, to impacted agencies, and to internal city departments. Administration supports the amendments as the proposed medium-density residential development is compatible with the surrounding development. It provides an opportunity to increase residential density in the Place Chaleroux neighborhood in accordance with the established residential MDP land use designation, and it will allow development to take place on an underutilized parcel. Should council give first reading to bylaw 1048-24 to amend the MDP this evening, then afterwards you may consider also giving first reading to the redistricting bylaw. A public hearing and second and third readings will then be scheduled for both bylaws and for the outline plan amendment, giving the public opportunity to provide input and for council to debate the bylaws. This concludes my presentation. Administration welcomes any questions from council on the 2 applications.
Thank you. Any questions for our presentation before I move to the motion for first reading? Then we can discuss first reading. Seeing no questions? At this point, is a member of council willing to move first reading? Madam Clerk? Oh, sorry, it's on the screen now. Yeah, thank you. I'll move that bylaw 1048-24 Municipal Development Plan Place Chaleroux amendment be given first reading. Discussion on the motion from members of council. And I will remind council, there will be a public hearing should first reading pass on May 14th with second and third reading. This evening, council welcome to ask any clarifying questions or express any concerns they may have, but we'll try and avoid debating the merits of the bylaw this evening as best we possibly can. Sometimes clarifying questions sometimes fall into debates. We'll try and monitor that as best we can. So that's kind of the ground rules for our first reading. So with that, I'll open any questions, members of council on first reading. I see Councilor Cook, you have the floor.
Thank you. You said there's a restrictive covenant that prevents them or makes it more difficult. Who's the restricted covenant from? Do we have that information? Are we able to share?
Probably not by name, but it is the grocery chain.
Okay. Thank you. That's it for now, Mayor. Thank you.
I'll come back to you if you need to, not a problem at all. Councilman Newkirk, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of questions. In what was submitted, it said the applicant submitted reports to support their application. This included the commercial needs review, the detailed leasing history of the site and such. Can you confirm were the reports that the applicant submitted included as part of our package? I don't think I saw them.
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Newkirk, the applicant's report was not submitted, no, in the agenda package.
Okay, so we don't have that information in front of us then?
No.
Okay. Okay, so further on in that same statement, it says that in 4.5 years of leasing, the property owner received only one offer to lease. One was unable to sign a tenant. Leasing brokers have been replaced, but have indicated to the property owner that there was a lack of interest in leasing commercial spaces in this area due to market saturation. So that's put forward in the report. Did you get any indication from the applicant around the ability that they have had to reduce their price to work within the market? Did we get any indication of that in this report or in the supporting documents that were provided?
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Nieuwkerk, the applicant did not provide specifics around leasing rates that were offered.
The reason I ask is I suppose if you wanted to get a lease, you know, you would have to be willing to adjust your price, right? And so I feel that, you know, that information, if that information wasn't here, then it's tough to make a decision based on that argument, I guess. I just want to point that out. Okay.
Yeah. That's for the Beaumont in general. Yeah, so the applicant didn't provide that information to us specifically. They will be presenting at the public hearing next month. So that's something that they can certainly share with you at that point in time.
You good, Steve? Yep, thank you. Councilor Telebus, followed by Councilor Barnhart. Councilor Telebus, you have the floor.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the information you provided so far. I guess looking, for a little clarity that I guess we don't have that answer, but I think it's really important. Councillor Van Nieuwkerk brought that up. You know, we don't really know what was done to try and engage individuals to approach the commercial market. And if there's not a price reduction, it's no different than selling your house or leasing your house or renting your house. If you're not getting any bites, there's often things you can do to adjust that. So it's a bit concerning that information wasn't provided, because it's really important and helps us determine how we would approach something like this. Secondary to that, I guess my concern would lie around, we talk about affordability for business owners and the higher rent that we see throughout Beaumont. By reducing basically our number of units that are available or our commercial space, we're potentially impeding that affordability even more for business owners. And that's concerning on my part. You know, we're with a community that's primarily residential, and the big push we've had for density lately, we don't want to give up some of this commercial land that gives opportunity to the small businesses, even some of the bigger businesses, and focus on that affordability. Again, by reducing the market, my concern is that prices could potentially go up because it's a supply and demand concept. And additionally, we talk about burden of tax for residents. So obviously we're trying to drag in more corporations and corporate businesses. And again, by reducing basically the size and the amount of land we have dedicated to corporations and corporate development, we're not getting any further ahead. So those are the concerns I have with it. Also, in terms of the community members, again, just received a message with concerns around the density in an area where they were under the impression it would be developed a certain way, and then we're pushing more density into a community that wasn't expecting it. So that's kind of my opinion on this. Therefore, I won't be supporting this.
Thank you, Councilor. Appreciate that. Councilor Barnhart, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. And I appreciate that as this is first reading, we have an opportunity to kind of put out there some of the questions that we might have, and that the information could come back during second reading if that's the way we go here, if it does pass first reading. I have similar questions around the commercial use, and a question to the administration. This is the municipal development plan that we're considering making an amendment to. And it's my understanding from the work that was done on that this was land that we felt this is where commercial development should go in the future as we develop Beaumont. I'm wondering if this change is made, if this passes, what does it take to go back to put commercial on that property? Does that, just explain that a little bit further. So if we were to change this, then it would take, again, another council decision before we could change it back again. If there was, say, for example, a hotel or someone else that wanted to be there. Does that covenant, maybe that's the reason why that's not something to be concerned about because of the restricted covenant? Maybe you could explain that to me a little bit further, please.
Councillor Barnhart, I can answer to start answering your questions while Katrina is looking for some further details. With regarding to whether if there is later on there is an opportunity for commercial development, yes, then the applicant will have to come back to council for a rezoning change or maybe an outline plan change and also an MDP change to go back to the commercial destination. But with regarding to specific whether the hotel would be able to be on this land, I'm not 100% familiar with the land use bylaw, but I believe that the IN district, the land use district, there are certain commercial uses that are allowed, even though they may be discretionary use, that may be allowed under the IN district. So in that case, the applicant may not necessarily have to come back to council for that change. If the land use bylaw, the IN district allows that use, and if they are able to get a development permit. So, but if the use is not listed within the IN district, then yes, definitely they have to rezone it.
And the restricted covenant wouldn't preclude that kind of development. It's whatever specifically is in the restricted covenant, which I understand you might not be able to go into specifics on that, but yeah, there could be other commercial development in an integrated neighborhood. I guess that's what integrated district, that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, with regarding to the users that are not allowed on the on this parcel with regarding to that covenant, there are several things. For example, I'm reading some of the lists from the applicant is such as the pharmacies, right? Clothing stores and apparels, home electronics and furnishings, food service, food and beverages. Those are some of the uses that are listed not allowed on the parcel. So
interesting. Yeah, that's very restrictive. Okay. One other question, if I may. Thank you very much, Mr. Wong. But on the reasons that were given why council may consider not making this change, one was around ensuring that the applicant has considered planned infrastructure for the residential piece. And I'm just wondering, given the location, again, it's similar to where Councillor Van Nieuwkerk was asking for. We don't have that information. So I'm wondering if that's something when if the applicant is coming back and making a presentation, we could get more information about how is residential going to fit into that area, whether it be green space or traffic safety or crossing to the schools or whatever it might be, because I know that area can be quite busy at times. So anyway, if you have any comments, Mr. Wong, on that, but if not, that's one of my concerns as well.
Through the mayor to Councillor Barnhart, we can certainly include the utility memo and transportation memo as attachments to the next report or the second and third readings. Both of those memos indicated that the residential use would actually tax the existing infrastructure less than a commercial use would for stormwater, as well as the road system. So there was the transportation memo indicated that there would be actually less traffic from the residential than to a commercial development in that location.
And again, not only the hard infrastructure, but well, I think it still is, but in terms of parks walkways, pedestrian access, things like that. Are those covered off as well, if we're introducing residential into an area that is quite heavily trafficked?
So open space and parks were not one of the items mentioned by the MDP as sort of a requirement for the applicant to address when submitting a redistricting proposal. One thing to note about this area is that the density actually remains very low. In the outline plan as it currently stands, there's a density of only 20 units per net residential hectare. This development would bring it up to 23, which is quite far below the 35 that we're aiming for in our newer neighborhoods and the 25 that existed under the previous capital region growth plan. So just as a note, the area is quite low density already. So when we're considering the infrastructure that exists in the neighborhoods and the amenities and services, we should just keep that in mind that there are fewer users located in this neighborhood than there might be in other neighborhoods.
Okay, those are my questions for now, and I appreciate the answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Councilman Newkirk, followed by Councilman Swain, followed by Councilor McCook. Councilman Newkirk, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Question on the utility servicing. So there's a statement in here. It says a utility servicing memo was submitted with the application and demonstrates that the existing fire flow requirements will still be met and the sanitary and storm sewer systems will have sufficient capacity to accommodate the change in land use. Are those considerations put forward given the full build out of other infrastructure and opportunities on that same line? The reason I ask that is because directly across the street, there's an open piece of land that is yet to be developed. Directly east, there is probably an underutilized piece of property, where the French school is now. That it's used for that land use now, but when that changes in the future, that is probably an underutilized piece of land that will create more flow into the sanitary. So are we in a situation where first in, it's okay with the volume of the utility servicing available on that street, or is this a statement that covers full build out along the subsurface infrastructure? Does my question make sense? Yeah.
I can try to attempt. I'm not an engineer, but I can basically through the planning and development process. If you are looking at undeveloped land right now, probably you're referring to south of Highway 625.
No, north,
Oh.
just across the street.
Right?
Yeah.
The infrastructure that is in place now will have already accounted for for that partial roof vacant parcel just to the directly north to this rezoning parcel. Yeah, the infrastructure layout there has already taken account of all the entire development of partial roof
Upon full
Yeah.
build out, right?
upon full build out. Yeah.
Okay.
So there will be no impact on that.
Okay, perfect. And then a question on the covenants. I'm unclear about how and when you would determine and find out about covenants upon purchase of a property and such. So like during the purchase of any parcel of land, are any existing covenants discovered and disclosed by your legal counsel as part of that process? That's, first part of my question. I think we're just talking about facts here, right? Yeah.
We thought about that too, but that is something that actually we find out the restrictive covenant actually was on the land title then when we developed more or less it's time when we developed the outline plan. It was probably the owner's things. Yes, there is only a certain number of users that are not allowed. There are other commercial users. But then in reality now, sometimes later, they realize that no, these are some of the crucial, some of the higher priority, the best use for the parcel. And that is why if they cannot put it on the land, so basically the land becomes not really commercial use. And that is why they are thinking about, maybe a rezoning would help to get the site developed.
Okay, so just for clarity, this covenant would have been there upon purchase. This isn't new information that would have
Not
surfaced
new
since
information to
purchase?
the owner, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Madam Clerk, you should make a interjection in the conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick reminder that we will have the public hearing. The applicant will be present. There will be opportunities to ask those directed questions that maybe are best suited for the applicant. I know council maintains an open mind and is looking forward to the public hearing. But I just wanted to put that reminder. It's so easy to slip into a little bit of debate. And I'm sure there will be a lot of interest in this matter when it does go to the public hearing.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With that, I'll move on to Councilor McCobb-Swain, followed by Councilor McCook. I see, and then Councilor Penrod. So Councilor McCobb-Swain, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Well said. Thank you for clarifying that because we're getting close, or actually we're past that. So I will be supporting this motion purely for the fact to get this to the public hearing process and get it back, and I'll look forward to debating and discussing it once I've heard that public hearing for second reading. So I just wanted to clarify why I'll be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. I appreciate that, and I agree with you. Councilor McCook, you have the floor now.
Thank you. Madam Clerk kind of clarified what I was gonna say as well. Yeah, I think obviously that there's more information that council's looking for, and hopefully this goes through so we can get to a public hearing and be able to do our due diligence on that and allow the applicant and anyone else who would like to have a say around this to be able to come forward and have a say. So thank you, and I will be supporting first reading.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Penrod, followed by Councilman Euchre. Councilor Penrod?
Thank you, Mayor Daniluk. So I'd just like to ask some clarifying process questions, or maybe just one. So with respect to administration and to our clerk this evening, I'm unsure as to how I would like to vote with respect to first reading. And we don't get to a hearing or second reading or third reading unless this passes first reading, correct? So I think there's room for some, I hear some strong concerns about this proposal being expressed, and it would be fully within the rights of council to not move this or pass it through first reading. What I would like to know is what would be, because I didn't see this in the risk analysis section of your report, what's the downside to not moving this out of first reading? Would the proponent, for example, have an opportunity to try again, or is this sort of a one-shot deal? If you could give me some color on that, I'd appreciate it.
Madam Clerk?
Sure. I'll speak to some of the procedural pieces, and it may give council some comfort. So of course, council has the option to vote however council pleases. Voting yes for first reading doesn't necessarily mean you support the bylaw. You just support moving to the next phase of the process, which will be the public hearing. And then we still have a requirement for second and third reading. Both second and third reading require a passing vote in order for this bylaw change to take effect. So if members of council have some misgivings or concerns about the bylaw, they have the option, they could vote no. And if the bylaw does not pass at first reading, this matter dies. If they vote yes, we continue with the process and we move to the public hearing as scheduled and second and third reading. So you have multiple decision points. Because bylaws are legislation, that's why there are 3 readings, to allow council some time for sober second thought. And in this case, also to hear from the public and the applicant in this process.
Yeah, so if maybe I could ask for some further clarification, since the proponent isn't here to speak for themselves, I guess they wouldn't have standing to speak for themselves tonight. If you could tell me what would be the result for them if this doesn't pass first reading this evening? Does that end the matter? Would they be able to?
Madam Clerk? Or Mr. Wong, I'm assuming Madam Clerk, it's procedural.
Legally speaking, the bylaw would be dead. And so it would either be brought forward at another time if the applicant chose to do so. It would be at least a year or after the next general municipal election. But that would be entirely contingent on the wishes of the applicant and how they wish to proceed if the matter were to be defeated tonight. I'm not sure if Mr. Wong wanted to add personal comments.
There is a time there will be a time delay for them to bring the application back, even the same application, because the land use bylaw says, if a bylaw is not approved by council, they cannot come back like next week or next month. They have to wait a certain period.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm weighing and will continue to weigh as we move towards a vote on this first reading is, on the one hand, philosophically, I want to be kind of minimally interventionist, telling people what they can and can't do with their private property. Especially because we're trying to bring more commercial interests to Beaumont all the time. That's in the wider interest of the whole community. We don't want to inadvertently cool that through any decision. And I think we've actually heard other people speak to that. Same time though, we are looking at opening up and revising a fairly major high level plan for the community. And so I think there is some merit to consider, do we want to open that up every time someone makes a suggestion? So those are the things that I'll consider, continue to ponder as we move towards this vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councilman Newkirk, followed by Councillor Markov Swain. Councilman Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And like some important clarifying questions tonight, but I think I continue to have more questions. So, for myself, I do look forward to, the next phases in the process here, because there are some questions I think that remain unanswered and would be good to hear from the applicant. I don't think the information in front of us was wholesome enough tonight for me to oppose first reading. And that's where I stand, Mayor. That's where I'm at right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Markov Swain, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks. And maybe just to pick up on your comments and take it for what it's worth and ignore me if you want. I think it sets a dangerous precedent to vote no on something without all the information in front of us. The applicant doesn't have a chance, hasn't have a chance right now to share their perspective. We haven't heard from the public. And I think if council starts voting no on first readings without knowing the implications of it, that could have a ripple on effect. So, I'm hearing concerns from folks and we'll get into those, but I think it's important to make sure that we hear from the public on this. And ultimately administration chooses what comes in front of us, right? They've looked at this, they think it's worth us discussing it. And not every little application that someone wants to change has an impact to the MDP, and those large plans comes in front of us, right? Administration can filter all those out. They obviously think this one meets that threshold. And it doesn't seem like a lot of work to get it to second reading. So I'd encourage you to vote for this, and then we can get into the healthy debate moving forward. And as pointed out, a vote for first reading is not a vote for the bylaw, it's a vote to move it forward. So I'll just leave you with those thoughts and leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no further comments from anybody questioning, I'll have a quick comment myself, thinking I agree first reading is simply to get it to the next stage and have the applicant in front of us, and concerns raised will be aired at the second and third reading. It have to be something very, very major in the first reading to have me ever want to look at a bylaw and say, I can't support first reading. It have to be very, very major. I see nothing in this application that gives me any concern not to pass first reading. So with that, seeing no further mentions or comments from any council members, I'll ask council to vote on first reading, please. Councillor Barnhart, how do you vote?
In favor of first reading, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. And that passes 6-1 in favor. Councillor Telebus in opposition. Thank you, Council. With that, move on to item 3.2 for bylaw 1049-24 Place Charleroux land use bylaw, amending bylaw, first reading. Looking for a motion from member of council on first reading before we discuss it. Councilor McCook, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that bylaw 1049-24, Place Chaleureuse Land Use Bylaw amending bylaw be given first reading.
Thank you, Councilor. Do you wish to speak to the motion as you have the floor now? Or you're okay?
I'm okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any members of council having any clarifying questions on first reading of bylaw 1049-24? Councilor Varner, I don't see you on the screen. Just make sure you have any questions before I move on.
Questions? No questions, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. I appreciate that. Seeing no questions from any members of council, I'll ask you to vote on first reading on the bylaw before you. Councilor Barnhart, how do you
In
vote?
favor. In favor.
Thank you. That also passes first reading 6-1. Councilor Natalabas in opposition. Thank you, administration, for your presentation this evening, and enjoy your night. With that, I'll move on to the next part of our our agenda this evening, pardon me, is 3.3 2024 budget amendment. Mr. DeBlanco, I see you've joined us this evening. When you're ready, sir, you have the floor.
Good evening to the mayor and council. I'm Curtis DeBlanco. I'm the director of finance. Before council tonight is a report recommending an amendment to the approved 2024 municipal operating budget. Attachment 1 to the report provides a view of the operating budget as approved in December, as well as carry forwards approved in January, and then the proposed amendments to arrive at the final amended budget. Proposed amendments typically fall into 4 categories: economic updates, adjustments from other entities or other orders of government, council directed amendments, and administrative. This year's amendment only includes economic updates and some recommended administrative amendments. So for the economic updates, administration evaluates changes in forecasts after the approval of the budget. Amendments to the budgets are proposed so that the property tax bylaw can be approved to collect the required taxation revenue. The property tax bylaw is scheduled to come to council next week. Since council approved the 2024 budget, administration has finalized the overall assessment and growth numbers. A forecasted increase in taxation revenue associated from growth was forecast to be 1.25 million. Finalization of assessment numbers for the tax year resulted in actual real growth of 1.263800. The city also receives updated requisition amounts from bodies such as the Alberta School Foundation Funds, St. Thomas Aquinas School Board, Leduc Regional Housing Foundation, and then there is an amount for designated industrial property. So the shore up of those requisition amounts is to update the budget to those numbers. Administration is also proposing funding for a project for the update of the city's offsite levy model. A detailed project profile is included as attachment 2 to this report, and this project is recommended to be funded from the planning reserve. So with the approval of the recommended amendments, the average percentage increase for municipal property tax for 2024 remains at that 6.45% as approved in December. Requisitions are at 9.9 million, non-tax revenue at 22.3 million, and the total revenues matching expenses are 60,507,300. Once the budget has been approved and subsequently next week, the property tax bylaw, property tax notices can then be distributed to property owners by the end of May, and then property taxes are due by the end of June. This concludes my report. I'll turn it back over to council. Thank you.
Mr. Blanco, appreciate that. Any members of council, any questions, Mr. DeBlanco? Councilman Newkirk, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Just regarding the offsite levy review and update, just could you add a little bit more commentary as to what the final deliverable will be, why and why we would need that information, and how that affects like how we can use that information?
Thanks for the question. Through the mayor to Councillor Van Newkirk. I may lean on my colleague to the left here to help with this, but the intent is to go through a full scale review of all the offsite levies the city has, update the model, as well as produce a new bylaw, and then all the pieces that go along with that, engaging with developers, ensuring that the items that are in our long-term capital plan and items from the utility master plan are fully in there, and that we're up to date on that modeling.
Yeah, thank you. Just, and that commentary is great. Thank you. You know, all I underscore is the fact that, you know, I support this project. And I appreciate the tight numbers above, that there wasn't any monumental change that put in front of taxpayers tonight. And the offsite levy review and update will be, you know, timely information to help guide future decisions, right? I think it's a real important piece of the puzzle as we tackle the continual growth challenges in Beaumont. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I appreciate that. The question and the comments thereafter. Any further questions, members of council, on the budget update from Mr. DeBlanco? Seeing none, council, I will ask you then to, oh, sorry. Going to do the motion first, right? I'll move that an amendment to the 2024 municipal operating budget as set out in attachment 1 of the April 16, 2024 report, 2024 budget amendment be approved. I will not speak to the motion. I think there's no council question from anybody, so I'm prepared not to speak to it myself. Any questions from members of council on the motion? Any discussion, please? All right, seeing none, council, I'll ask you to vote on the motion before you. Councillor Barnhart, how do you vote?
In favor, Mayor.
Thank you, council, and that carries unanimously 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Blanco. Thank you, administration, for being here this evening. And that brings us to the end of our agenda of our special council meeting on Tuesday, April 16th. Thank you all for attending. We are adjourned at 7:29. Thank you and enjoy your night.